Right, warm welcome everyone. It's so nice to have you into this particular session. It is the month of May. Now, you might be wondering, yes, we know it's the month of May. No, this is the month of MAI. This is the month where we're going to be talking about AI. And I want to introduce AI to you in a way that maybe, and I'll be honest with you, you've never heard it before, because I've never heard this before as well. I actually did some kind of deep searching through the actual internet and started to pick up little bits and pieces of where did AI actually come from. And I actually was quite astonished by what I uncovered, and I think you're going to enjoy this as well. Now, the first thing that we're going to go through here is so that we can get the big elephant out of the room, and that is May. It is May times AI because I'm initiating it in the month of May. But the big thing that I want you to know here is the future, your future, is actually in your hands. And I don't want you ever to think that you're losing control. That's quite important as we're going through all of this particular session. So, one of the key things that we actually came to realize is AI is not new. We all thought it was something new when it first launched in 2020, but it's not new. What has changed is how we access it. And that has become extremely powerful. You see, in the past, we've been using AI every single day without you even knowing about it. Things like, if you think about it, when you went out and you did some Google searches and suddenly what you searched for, it came up with some results. Now, some people said, yes, but there's paid to put it up the top. Well, there's a bit of AI that connected into that. Or there's a bit of, well, the organic. Hey, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Have you ever thought of that? Whenever you went to go do a Google search, not every time, but most times you found what you were looking for. Well, there's a bit of intelligence behind that. Also think about maps and navigation. If you think about it, you're using an app on your phone that you've probably been using for many, many years, things like the TomTom and the Garmin, that was a little devices on our dashboards. We would put in a particular destination and it would actually calculate the route, tell us how long it will take us to get there. It would also say, hey, do you want to miss the highways, and recalculate it. That's all a bit of intelligence that came out. There's also been recommendations that came through searches, or when you're actually typing something out, you would get these recommendations of, hey, well, maybe you have a chocolate cake instead of a traditional wedding cake, which is a fruit cake. There's a kind of a recommendation coming out there. And then one of the big ones, and I was really, when I looked into this one, this really blew my mind. Spam filters. You know, so too often we are in this era where we received a lot of emails, and ultimately, suddenly there's a certain amount of emails where something would say, hey, this is spam, and put it into our junk folder or delete it altogether. That was one of the most powerful ways, and it was actually a trigger for me to go, oh my gosh, AI, it's not new. It's always been around, but we're just accessing it in a very, very different way. So really what I wanted to do here was, when I started to dig deep to uncover what is AI and how does it work and all of these type of things, the big little bubble above my head went, where did it start? So I started to dig back, and I want to say, my eyes were open when I looked at all of this. In fact, for some of us, we think, well, maybe it's the year 2000 that it came about, or maybe it was the 1900s. Well, surprise, surprise. It wasn't called AI, by the way. It wasn't called back then as AI, but it was actually back in the early 1800s. There was a gentleman by the name of Charles Babbage. And you're going to go, what the heck? We're going so far back. Well, this is what Charles Babbage actually he actually designed what they refer to as the analytical engine. And this is actually the very first concept of programming a mechanical computer, not like what we know today. This was a mechanical computer. Now, he didn't create AI. Let's just get that out of the way. He didn't create AI. But what he did do is he created the idea that a machine could follow logic. Now, that's where it all began. He actually came up with this idea that machine could actually follow logic. And that was unbelievable. Now, in his analytical engine, if you actually look at it, there were three components to it. The first part was actually a storage, something that could hold memory. So you do something and hold the memory. The second was what he referred to as a mill, but it was actually the processor which did the actions. And the third one was the ability to follow programs and actually follow those instructions. Those were the three components that he had actually created. And it was on the back of that concept that everything started to take place. Now, for the ladies out there, I want to share something that I did not know, but this is going to impress you. Now, this was back in 1840. Oh my gosh, 1840. There was a lady called Ada Lovelace. Now, what she actually did is she was considered the first person to write an algorithm. Now, she did this before any kind of machines were even put together. She actually wrote an algorithm that really started to initiate everything that started to build. So we've got Charles who came up with that creative idea, and we've got Ada who actually then started to create this algorithm. Now, this is the first thing. She could actually put down these computations into this creativity. You put something in and it will create something out. So when we look at this, this was the early foundations. These two individuals, which I want to say, nobody really knows who they are. They're lost in the actual world. But Charles Babbage actually built the concept of a machine, which we need. That's what we use today. And Ada, imagine what the machine could become. That was such an important part of this particular journey. Now, let's actually have a look at putting these two components together. Well, there was another gentleman, and this is really where AI had these two components and they came together. I always want to say, when I was looking at all of this, Charles is the big daddy and Ada is the big mother. They came together to create what is soon to be known as AI as we know it today. So this birth of AI from those two individuals, actually we have to fast forward over 100 years to 1950s. Now, in 1950, Alan Turing, all right, this is a name where again I had to dig out, and I've got all my little notes here because there's no ways I'm going to remember all of this. But Alan Turing is the pivotal bridge between machines that calculate and machines that might think. He actually put them together. So one machine could calculate, one machine could think, and he went, wait a minute, let's just put the two together. And in fact, it's in, we actually want to go, it was 1936, where he introduced the concept of the Turing machine. He took credit for his surname and he takes that. Now, this is a theoretical model that defines what computations is. And it was actually, and this is what blew my mind, it was during World War II that he played a critical role in breaking the Enigma code, which actually, well, if you think about it, if you do any kind of research, that Enigma coding machine was actually used to communicate all across the world. It actually was key in actually breaking all of that. The words that came from him, and it's really where it started, he actually asked this particular question, which is from him: can machines think? This was his evolution. This was something that really started to bring things into action and get that thought process actually working. But now we need to fast forward a little bit. And this was actually in 1956. And this was at what we now know as the Dartmouth Conference. Now, at the Dartmouth Conference, it was in 1956, the term artificial intelligence was officially coined. This is when they first announced it. This is something brand new. And ultimately, this is what was one of the words, and I'm going to read it verbatim from them. Every aspect of learning or intelligence can, in principle, be described so precisely that a machine can simulate it. So at the Dartmouth Conference, and there was a number of individuals there, they actually announced artificial intelligence. Now, I know for the historians inside of you, you're going, oh, yeah, Stuart, this is great. But you know, when you start to actually look at this, we all thought that this was something that was revolutionary. It was something that only came now. Where the truth of it is, it's actually been building for, well, hundreds of years. We can say that because we're in 2026. Now I'm just dating this particular session. So Turing asked the question, all right, which was, can machines think? Dartmouth at that conference gave it a name. Now we're seeing this particular birth that's starting to come through. Now, over time, from these conferences and through Alan Turing, there was more development. There was more that was put into place. But there was one company, and this particular company really came to highlight in the 1980s with computers, and they started to build them and they started to design them. But what they really wanted to do is they wanted to take it to the next level. Now, as much as they really hit the market in the early 80s, it was only in the late 90s that suddenly something came about. They created the first AI in practice. And when I say in practice, it was the first AI that was used in front of an audience against a human being. They called the AI Deep Blue. Now, this particular AI has actually been one that did something that was amazing. It played a game of chess against Garry Kasparov, who was at the time the world's #1 chess player. Nobody could beat him. He literally would sit there, compute the actual moves, and he would take down any opposition. But what they did, and it wasn't a computer that was thinking on his particular moves, it was reacting. And what they actually did was they actually took their computer, and was a highly specialized, and they actually built in all the possible moves into its memory bank, and they would evaluate every single chess move, every single possible chess move that actually started, and it would do millions of these type of calculations every single second to calculate the best possible move to beat him. And they did that in 1997. Now, did it win on the first attempt? No, it didn't. It did take a few because there were a few glitches, but it still beat him. A computer beat Garry Kasparov. So for your chess lovers out there, you're going, okay, this is where AI got a bit interesting. So now we actually look at the 1990s right up to the 2010. And what we're actually going to start seeing is with the generation of this deep blue that started to integrate, the likes of Google started to put into their search engines. A lot of your internet, your email providers started to add it into spam filters. They knew that they could actually put in certain instructions that would have a certain output and actually start to give you some level of artificial intelligence. There were those recommendations that came out, the navigation apps that I spoke about. They all came about from 1990s up until the 2010. And this actually became such an important foundation because we were using AI for many years. We've been using AI without us actually knowing it. Even though the term was coined back in the 1950s, we didn't know that it was actually AI. We just thought it was actually a program that was just very clever and it was convenient for us. But it was all behind the scenes until one magical date. It was one magical company that said, you know what? Let's turn this on its back and let's actually present something to the world so that it's not just a tool that's built into something that we use, but it's built into something that we could actually become creative. And I want to take you back to this date. And I actually remember when this came out, the first thought that came in my head was, what is this? How is this going to be coming about? And it took me less than a month to test it for the first time. I was fairly impressed with its output. What am I actually talking about? Well, yes, it's now what we call generative AI. And this is when AI or OpenAI released ChatGPT, something that we could give instructions to and it would give us some form of output. And that was on the 30th of November, 2022. Now we can officially say the world changed on that date. That was a pivotal moment where everything changed going forward. You see, it was on that particular date that AI moved from behind the scenes to into everybody's hands, that allowed us to then become these creative individuals to do things that has really blown it to a whole new level. It was that particular date that we can actually say we lived through history. We just lived through it. We didn't know that it was going to be something significant. We didn't know that it was going to change the world. We didn't know what it's actually going to do. But it actually flipped everything upside down. And that particular date is such a key date for when everything changed going forward. So now when we look at this, and now that it's up in front of us, I actually want to start to say, well, when we're looking at AI, there are these 3 steps that we know what to do today. And really, when we go through AI, I now know that AI is in the open. We all know AI is in the open. Guaranteed, every single one of you have either used it when it's behind the scenes or you're using it every single day in your hands and you're going forward. But when we look at AI, there are these 3 steps. And the very first one is automation. This is part of AI to see this little model that we're working with. Is this the true AI? Well, the first one is automation. It's something that's rule based. In other words, if X is getting pushed to do Y, there's going to be some form of predefined logic. There's no learning in it. For instance, if I pour hot water on my hand, I know it's going to burn my hand. The predefined logic is don't do it, it's going to hurt your hand. That's simple. So the first is the automation. One thing triggers something else automatically. The second step is actually the machine learning. This learns from data. We are collecting data every single day. We take in this information, even as humans, we take in information and we know that if we pour hot water on our hand, it's going to burn us. That is data that's in our head. We're not going to do that. But what this actually helps us to do, it starts to improve the performance through experience with real world data. The more data that we have in, the better that we can do something. This just goes out of pure logic. When we do something and it doesn't work, we learn from it. When we learn, we're actually internalizing it, we're remembering it, we're actually evolving, and we do it better the next time. So that's the second step, is the machine learning. And then the third step is the generative AI. And this actually creates the new content that's actually going into the actual future. And this is where AI has evolved as we're going through these 3 steps. The generative AI couldn't have been generative AI if it didn't understand machine learning. And machine learning couldn't have been where it is if the automation was in place. This is this evolution, these 3 steps that's taken us to this particular point. And we needed all of the years of data. Because the big question that I asked myself is, well, then why didn't AI come back in the 1980s where we all started using it? Because there wasn't enough data. There wasn't enough of the machine learning for us to actually go through. So this is this progress that we're going into, basically into the future. Now, what can it generate for us? Well, it's text, it's images, it's code. Basically, it can learn patterns across billions and billions of examples. It takes all this information and it starts moving forward. And this is generative AI that creates something that's not even there yet. That's the power that comes through. But now I want to actually, because this can scare a lot of people, because I've had a lot of people that ask me, well, if this is so powerful, can it actually take my job? Well, this is where we want to actually set the record straight, because AI, and I'm saying currently, it is not a replacement for human judgment. All right. You are still cognate. You still make the decisions for yourself. Don't allow the AI, but it's not there to replace it. It's not there as a strategy engine. Okay. It's not there as a priority setter. It's not there to think like a human being. It's not there to do that. Not yet, maybe in the future, but not yet. What it is for, and this is what I want to make sure that you understand. AI is a tool for repeatable, time-consuming tasks. This is when you can use the power of AI for yourself. It's a thinking partner, not the thinker. It's when you're bouncing something off somebody that has all the data so that you can still be the human to make the decisions. And it's also a multiplier of focus, allowing you to, instead of saying, tell me what my priority is today, it can actually highlight certain priorities, certain actions, getting you to think around the box so that you can make the decision on what you wanted to go forward. You see, AI doesn't decide your one thing. It helps you get clearer on everything that isn't. That's what's so important, because we can get distracted with so much that is actually around us. So when we look at AI, and I'm talking about the generative AI, we're actually looking at where it can actually work for you. Well, it can be used to draft emails. These are these first drafts and seconds. You then refine the tone. It helps you to put things in place. It helps you to do meeting summaries. When you're doing a 2-hour session, it can give you the transcribes. You can get that information, and it actually could pull out key information that's repeated in a particular session. That's data that it's created. You could also use it for brainstorming. Expand on ideas that you decide on what sticks. You see, you can actually use this to kind of get that creativeness of, I want to start a new business or attack a new area. What can I do? It'll share with you ideas that have already been done through the data so that you can then say, I didn't think of that particular idea. It's thinking about you talking about another partner. It's creating structural plans, framework that you can add strategies onto. Sometimes we think we know how to do something, but we need to learn from others. This is just giving those others and putting it in path in front of us. It's doing the research for us so that we can actually pull information to make this informed decisions. And it gives us data summary, patterns that happen. So it allows us to make better decisions. You see, where AI works for you, it's a support structure. It's not you being replaced. This is something that's absolutely key. So when we look at it from a support structure, and I really wanted to go through and say, I want you to see AI as a business partner, as a strategic partner, somebody that you can partner with to get better ideas, to make better decisions for yourself. It's just getting those informations. We always had them in the companies. Well, now we've got it at our fingertips. So when we look at our particular priorities, the AI support could actually draft those priorities for us so that we know this is my priority, this is my priority. It could draft it and put it into a certain fashion. When we look at making decisions, well, AI can support us by giving us a variety of options that we may never have thought about. Why? Because it's pulled the information from data. It's also strategy. When we go ahead to do strategy, we need information to make those decisions. So you can use AI to support, to give you all of those informations. Now, if you start looking at this, it starts to build on each other. And the last one is building up these relationships. When you're wanting to really go deeper, and I'm talking business relationships with certain individuals, this could help you with efficiencies where you have the information, you know the options of the direction you can go, and it can draft certain emails for you or certain ways that you want to communicate with them so that you're allowed to build better relationships. Be key on the strategies that you're going to be working with. Make those decisions that are positive, forward thinking decisions, but allow you to focus on your priorities. Because the big thing here, AI is something that's not going away. It's not something that we can go Control, Alt, Delete, and hopefully it disappears. It's here to stay. So instead of fighting it, we need to understand how we can work with it, because this is absolutely key. When you actually work with it, it's not replacing you at all. What it's actually doing, it's helping you to outperform everybody else. It helps to elevate you going forward. And this little quote, I think, is absolutely powerful. AI does not take your job. It takes the part of the job that shouldn't have been yours in the first place. This is where, when we're looking at having a virtual assistant or some kind of admin, somebody on the marketing, somebody that's going to be putting those emails on the creatives together, those rabbit holes that we can go down, those distractions that can pull us away from our focus. This is how you partner with AI to support you. When you can see it in this particular light, what you're going to see is a different world of AI. It's a different world where, instead of trying to fight it or be feared of it, you're actually going to embrace it. And when you know how to work with it, suddenly everything changes. You see, people that use AI effectively will outperform those who don't. They will coming into the future. We need to look at AI to give us these creative ideas, not to do the work for us. We still do it. So the question isn't whether to use AI, it's how well you're going to use it. And that's the power of AI. And these are going to be the sessions that we're going to be talking. I'm breaking down into different sections so that we can understand how we can get AI to support us in a correct manner, in a manner that's going to help us to move forward, which is absolutely key in all of this. So this was the very first session of May, which is the month of May times AI. Remember, the future's already here. We can't dispute that. It is already here. We're living it. We're acting in it. We're doing everything that we should be doing. But it's what are you going to be doing with it that's going to elevate your business and your life so that you can outperform everybody else. And just remember this last. Everybody has access to the same tools. Everybody has access to the same tools. It's just a matter of time that they start to outperform you when they understand the tools better than you. So it's a good time to make sure that you start to learn those tools, to understand how it can support and elevate you so that you become the best that you can possibly be. So that is May. That is our first session, the introduction. Look out for more sessions that are actually coming out that fulfill all of this so that you can actually become the AI master, the ninja AI that can go through this industry in the best possible way. So it's a huge thank you from myself. I know this was a very, very unusual session, but really I wanted to uncover, pull back everything to say, where did it actually start? And take you to that date, the 30th of November, 2022. It's where it all began. It's where the world changed. And hopefully, we're going to embrace it in a powerful way to help us going forward. So from myself, Stuart, it's actually a cheers for now.